Hello, welcome to creating an organic botanic today in the fashion lab. Today we're going to be trying to create a simple botanic textile design activity which can be replicated in the classroom. The first step is to send your students out into the garden, or this could be you, and find a piece of organic matter, preferably a pod or a flower, just something simple. Send them out. Get them to be back within 5 minutes. Just grab whatever it is. The next step is to get your botanical object and to draw it. Now, I recommend that they draw in pen or fine line because this will work better in some of our later stages. Also, you want them to commit to it and not to be drawing in pencil, which they might want to rub out and finesse about, whereas we're really wanting the naivety as part of this. As you can see, this is our pod. Like if I was to turn this picture around, this is what I have drawn, this section here. Okay, once you have drawn your picture, I would say give them 2 minutes to draw it, keep it really simple. Then you want to get your image, photograph it, send it to yourself, scan it into your computer, whichever method works best with the equipment you have. Then we want to come down to step 3. Step 3 is that we just want to, with this selected, we want to come up to the top here. Without it selected, we have different options, because at our control bar, which is not open, we come up to window and it's this button here. So you can see it's not open here. Here it is. And the control bar is intuitive to what you have selected. So once this is selected, we want to come up to image trace. And because we've done it in pen or fine line, our line art default preset will work really well with this. So we click on that and we'll go yes, okay, and this will bring up our design. We may need to tweak it a little, so if we do, we can come up to this little box up here which is image trace profile. I've already opened mine, but normally it would just open it somewhere, so let's bring it over close so you can see what I'm doing. And I may just want to up the threshold, and when you get it, you may have it with this advanced part open or shut. The other one that's quite good to move around a bit is the noise. But can you see when I did the threshold, I ended up with this part being filled in, which wasn't showing initially. Now, yes, I do have all this rubbish down the bottom. I'm just going to dock this over here, just in case I need it later. We've got all this rubbish down here. But when we're changing the sliders, we're concentrating on the bit of our artwork that's important, and that, I think we've got that looking right. This is just rubbish that will be easily deleted. So once we get to this, we go to step 4, and that is expand. So up here, can you see expand? Once again, because it's still selected, and this turns it from a bitmap image into a vector. Because this is all by that step, it is all group, I'm going to go to my white arrow, so that's A for the keyboard shortcut to find it. And I'm just going to click and drag below it and come up and make sure I don't touch anything above it. And this is called marqueing, when I click and drag and create a square to select everything within it. Then I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard. So now I've got my image and I've deleted it, all the rubbish. So now I'm going to click on my line and drag it down to the next step. The next step is to give it a stroke profile. So I come over to my stroke. I'm just going to once again click and drag this out so you can see what I'm going to do. If you open up one of these windows and it is condensed down, see these little triangles next to the word. If I click on that, that either contracts it or expands it. And it's down the bottom here. I want to come down to profile. I'm going to choose profile width 5 and maybe make it the weight of 3. I'm going to put this back up here because strokes we use all the time. And I'm happy with this. I am now ready to start colouring this. So I'm just going to bring this over to the colouring stage. Oops, I've deleted one of my pictures. But anyway, now we need to make our colour palette so that we've got colours to work with. I've done a screenshot or a snipping tool shot from Pinterest, and I've got this colour palette. To make this colour palette, I just come up to rectangle, which is keyboard shortcut M. And good thing about using keyboard shortcut, if I say it, is that at least you'll be able to find it. So I'm just going to click and drag and create a rectangle. I like my colour chips to have a little bit of a curved edge. So these little dots here are curved widgets, so it gives the corners of your square nice rounded curves. And I drag it towards the centre. These widgets do not drag vertically, horizontally, they drag on the diagonal. And once I've done that, I need to just give it a fill colour. So I'm just going to use this white double-headed arrow to swap the black stroke to the fill. You don't ever want a stroke around your swatches because they gives them it throws off the colour. So anyway, I can now go to eye for eyedropper. See how that brings up the eyedropper? And I'm going to click with my mouse on that colour, and that will give me that colour. So now I need the other colour. So I'm going to get my Alt, and I'm going to then hold my Shift and click and drag and create a second one. Then to that I want a few more. So to keep it simple, I'm going to hold my finger down on the control and I'm going to tap away at D, which means transform again. So then I can click on my second one and hit I for eyedropper, then A for selection tool, I for eyedropper, A for selection tool, I for eyedropper, A for selection tool, I for eyedropper, and each time when I say I for eyedropper I then click on my option. Okay, that's all good and well, but now we need to be dealing with true colour, so we need to turn these into Pantone. So I select them. Make sure I don't select anything else in the process, and I come up to the Recolor Artwork tool. And in the Recolor Artwork tool, I come to my swatches. It works the same as your swatches over here, and so it says I want to deal with these colours. And I'm going to come down to colour books. A good one to often work with is something like Colour Bridge Uncoated. I will often use Fashion Textile colours, but you might not have that on your computer, so we'll go with this one. And I'm going to go OK. And now when I click on my colour, if I was to come up to my colour palette, it shows it all as in Pantone. So then the next thing I need to do is I need to come to my swatches and come up to the menu. So these little lines going across in any of these windows are our menu. To this menu I'm going to click on that and create a new group. So this is my colour chips. I would normally give a season and a year to it, but that will do for now, so we're just going to delete that. So now I select my design, bring my stroke to the front. So that just means whichever one is active is the one at the front. I can then come to my swatches and choose a colour for this. I now want to give it a colour fill, and I just want to keep it really lovely and simple. I'm just going to move this to the side so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use my blob brush, and can you see at the end of my blob brush I've got a little circle? That's the size of the brush. If I use my parentheses on my keyboard, which are my brackets, if I push them, one will make it bigger, one will make it smaller. So if I've got that ready to go. But if I was to draw over this, it's going to end up over the top, so it's the wrong colour. Let's just give it, oops, I'm going to come to another colour in a moment. What I want to do is normally we draw in normal mode. I want to draw behind mode. Normal mode is that every time we draw something, it's added to the top of the stacking order in our layers. When we go to draw behind mode, it puts everything behind in the stacking order of the layers. So if I was to now just make sure that I've clicked off there and I've got my blob brush, I want to give it a colour, so I'm going to give it a colour, and now I'm going to come over here and I am going to just start with a few little lines here and come up. Now I want to vary it a bit. I want it to be thinner and I want some different lengths, so that I've got a real sort of, I want a little bit to come outside the lines as well to create a little bit more of an organic feel. And just give it a little bit of roughness to it, and come down here and colour that. That's good. And now I want the next colour for me, which I'm going to do a light blue. So I'm going to come up here once again, getting different lines, and because we're still in draw behind mode, this will end up behind it. So it's really good. Once I've drawn it, it's stacked how I want it to be stacked, which just makes it easy. Okay, so once we've done that, our design is ready for us to turn into a pattern. I might right mouse click and group this, and then I'm going to come up to Object, down to Pattern and Make. This will take us into pattern editing mode, and can you see when I click on my object within this, even though I just grouped it, it's no longer grouping. So I need to select it and go up to Object and Group. The keyboard shortcut, Control J. So now it's grouped. First things we want to explore is in this, we come up to our pattern option tools and we come up to brick by column. There are other options that you can have a look at, but let's just go with this for today. Then the next one we want to come to is the pattern tile tool. The pattern tile tool effectively activates this blue area, which is the boundary box. So if I click and drag it out, it makes it bigger or smaller, and it overlaps or underlaps depending on the design. I'm going to drag it out a little bit, and I'm then going to come to my selection tool, and I'm going to click on my motif. I'm going to then hold the Alt. Can you see how my arrow head turns into a double arrow head when I put my finger on the Alt? So I'm going to click and drag, release my mouse, and then release the Alt. I'm then going to come to the corners and see when I extend past it, I get this double-headed curved arrow. I'm going to click and drag 180 around and click and drag that into place. I've now still got it overlapping, so I'm going to come up to my pattern tile tool, and I'm going to click and drag until I've got this roughly so that they're not touching. But I may also, while I'm doing my brick, I may change the fraction to a different number so that I've got something that's working a little bit better for my design. I want this to be fairly tight but not touching. And I'm going to go done. That's great, that's done now. So now I'm going to come up, maybe zoom out a little, and I am going to create myself a test square to see how well that design turned out. Okay, I've got a black fill on it, don't want that. A stroke. I want to have a fill and see how this turned out. So I'm going to come over to my swatches, and with this selected, I am going to click on my swatch, and you can see, pardon me, my swatch. But there is a problem with my swatch. Can you see it has no fill colour? So that's easily fixed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to that swatch, and you can see because I have this active, it has a white line around showing which one it is. I'm going to click and drag it onto my page, zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. I might just move it off all my other artwork. And can you see that within it there is a square? If I get my direct selection tool, my white arrow that allows me to just select elements within it or anchor points, if I click and drag and just marquee that line, it will activate that, which is the boundary box within it. This is a little bit more obvious when I click on my layers over here. Can you see that there's a blue dot on here? So you can see which grouping has the active piece in it. So if I click on the drop down arrow and come to the bottom of this, can you see at the bottom of the stacking order here, it has no stroke and no fill. So this line here that's showing as a definite black line at the bottom of the stacking order is our boundary box. So this defines of what's included and what's excluded. So you can see that this little part of the flower here is excluded, and it's the same flower that's included in this part. I'm going to then drag it down and create a second copy. So there's our boundary box untouched, but we need to now give this a colour fill. So I'm just going to open up my swatches and click on my colours. To that, I've clicked on here, and this is all looking good, but there's one question about it, is how's this going to look on my board? Because I need to drag this in and update my swatch, but before I do that, I always think you should address your scale and at least get it close so that you're not fiddling around every time you use this pattern. You should get it to the scale you want first. So if I'm come to the corners, then hold the shift and roughly work out the scale that I want to go. Maybe that's a little bit small, that's roughly the size I want. Then I can select that swatch and click and drag, holding my Alt. Can you see when I hold my Alt, I get a black line around it, and there's a plus, and the Alt works as an override, and it will update that swatch. Can you see how it updated that then? And I can delete that because I can drag it out at any time. To this swatch, I can hold my Alt and click and drag, and then hold my Alt and click and drag. What I want to show you with that is that if I do a marquee with my selection tool, my align tools come up, and I can make sure that I align them so that they're nice and neat. The one last part of this process is that we now need to change the colours. The first one I'll leave as it is. I'm going to click on the second one and come up to the recolour. To the recolour, then there's our colour chip, that colour palette we created earlier. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to come down to randomly change colour order. And it will work its way through the colour orders until I find a colour I like, and then I can go OK, yes. And because we're using a nice, we're doing it to the next one, and make sure we choose the colour chips, because we're using the same colour palette, we should actually end up with colours that work very well together because it's a limited colour palette. Plus, you know, when you're doing this, you want to be choosing the most attractive colour ones that you think will work the best and give the best variety. So I'm going to go yes. So that basically is how you create your swatches and package it. Thank you. Hopefully you've enjoyed that.